I'm going to ask Carmen Moore Ziegler to open the prayer.
Good morning. We'll bow our heads. Father God, we thank you for bringing us here together again today as one, Lord Jesus. We ask that you clear our hearts and our minds and prepare us to do the duty that you set forth for us, God. We ask that you bless our city every day and our county and keep everybody whole right here in Montgomery, Alabama. Amen.
Amen. Come on, Kevin.
Do you want to go? We can go over our visitors and the items to be considered on the formal agenda. Our visitors looks like Chief Murphy is here for the Sheriff's Office, Grants Administrator Regina Walker, Susan Kennedy with Levitate, Phil Bryant from Community Corrections, our Deputy Administrator Kendall Anderson, and Parks and Rec Director James Williams. The items to be considered during the formal session are an application to ADECA for FY 2023 CDBG grant for $500,000 for scattered site housing rehabilitation. Consider a resolution to obligate ARPA funds and transfer those funds through an intergovernmental agreement to the City of Montgomery for certain joint Montgomery Thrive programs, that being trails and alternative transportation. Consider a resolution to obligate funding to the YMCA for the Kershaw YMCA facility and potential land acquisition, and to amend the contract beneficiary agreement governing the YMCA. Consider a resolution to obligate ARPA funding for improvements to the county's surveillance infrastructure. Consider a resolution for resurfacing Old McGee Road from Butler Mill Road to U.S. Highway 31. Consider an agreement with ALDOT for resurfacing Old Carter Hill Pike Road. Consider a memorandum of understanding for funding resurfacing of Wares Ferry Road from Froggy Bottom Ridge to Macklemore Road. Consider nomination of persons for consideration as board members of the County Board of Equalization. Consider amendment to Blue Cross Blue Shield Medical Benefit Enrollment Agreement to include pharmacy coverage. Consider a contract with Benevate regarding emergency rental assistance program software. Consider miscellaneous appropriations to agencies. Are there any additions there? Consider miscellaneous appropriations to education. Consider miscellaneous appropriations from designated revenue with the addition from Commissioner Carmen Moore Ziegler, $1,000 for the Central Alabama Aging Consortium from her designated for the senior prom. No, sir. $1,000 from Chairman Singleton for connecting the body of Christ for community service programs, and $3,980 from the joint designated for Brewtech for rings.
That's for the state championship rings.
Right.
They'll be here at 10 o'clock.
I wanted to do 2,500 for the Camp Kids group program from my designated. That's me out.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you so much. I am so sorry. I want to do 1,500 to me.
You have 1,500.
Did I already do 1,500?
Agencies, yes, ma'am.
Oh, I did?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm about to, they were about to get an extra to these things. Yeah.
No, she's got it in,
It's an agency.
Okay. It's an agency. I got you. Thank you.
Florence, may I go back to education and,
Sure.
if I could, and 1,000 to Park Crossing High School for principal discretionary fund?
While we're there, Florence, if I could, please. Good morning to everyone. I'm sorry I'm a little late. 1,000 to Baldwin, Middle Magnet, principal discretionary.
All right, anything else?
From the donate, have we gotten to the donated revenue yet?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 500 to Charlestown Neighborhood Association.
I'm sorry, to which?
Charlestown. And 500 to Meow. Thank you.
Anything else?
That should do it for me.
Consider a bid award to Supreme Cleaning to provide janitorial services for Annex 1 and Annex 2. Consider a bid award to Supreme Cleaning to provide janitorial services for Annex 3, Community Corrections, and Care Here premise location. Consider a bid award to Supreme Cleaning to provide janitorial services for the youth facility and probate revenue satellite offices. Consider travel training requests for the county commission, pretrial, sheriff's office, and tax and audit. So now we can hear from Chief Murphy.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Actually, over the course of a few years, we've added some duties and responsibilities to the secretary out at the youth facility. And so this past spring, we asked for a desk audit from the Personnel Board, which they did conduct, and they recommended that the position be changed from an administrative support specialist to an administrative assistant. And we're here today to ask you for that request.
What does that do, the chief? Is that, what does that do to the pay?
It's about $1,000 a year.
It is an increase
Yes, sir.
of $1,000 a year? Who's making this recommendation?
The Personnel Board, they did a desk audit.
Personnel board.
So this would be 1,000 per year, right?
Yes,
Just
sir.
increasing what, to the budget.
Yes, sir.
Anybody got any other questions?
Not to the budget.
I mean, not
But
to the
it's in the
budget,
budget, isn't it?
Well, the old position is budgeted, the new position pays higher, so it'll be about $1,000 a year increase. And a reminder, the city pays half that budget.
The city pays half of that.
So it's 1,000 to us, or it's 1,000 total?
500.
1,000 total, so. Any other questions? Next agenda.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Next, we'll hear from Regina Walker.
Good morning.
Morning.
You have before you a cooperative agreement from ADEM for the removal of hazardous debris on county right-of-way. The grant reimburses up to $150,000 a year for 3 years and renewable after that. They're not asking anything extra, just work that the engineering department is already doing.
Yeah.
And we're just getting reimbursed for it. Thank you.
Which is good. 'cause
Right.
We've had to pick a lot of debris up.
Exactly.
Any questions about that? That's a nice gift.
That is a very nice gift.
There's no match on it.
There's no match. You know, that was my next thing I was going to say. There's no match. Okay,
Next agenda.
thank you.
Let's go ahead and hear from Phil Bryant with Community Corrections regarding his annual Community Corrections Plan.
Good morning. The Department of Corrections requires that we submit an annual plan in order to be reimbursed for the people that we supervise. And that plan has to be approved by both the county commission and the community correction board. The board approved that plan, I think it was on the 20th. And so I emailed that plan to you all, and I'm asking you all to place it on the next agenda for approval.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I read the plan, and thank you for sending that. You had 5 criteria that determine whether or not someone might be high risk for reoffending, moderate risk, or low risk. I know one of those criteria had to do with the community that they came from. What, if anything, is community correction doing to kind of impact those 5 criteria that you all use to decide who's high risk, moderate, or low risk for reoffending?
Okay. And I think what you're talking about is the, what we use is the ARAS.
Yes.
That's a risk assessment.
Right.
And so what we do is, depending on where they fall in that, and if they're high risk, then there's also a needs assessment. And so we try to make sure that we refer them out to take care of whatever that needs assessment shows. So for instance, if, say a person needs education, then we'll try to get them a GED. If it says that they need housing, then we'll try to get them housing and that kind of stuff.
Okay. I was just curious about what type of interventions you all had out. If you don't mind, I'd like to meet with you sometime in the near future.
Sure.
Thank you.
That'll be next agenda.
Next, we'll hear from Susan Kennedy. There's several items to be considered.
So that, today, on this, that I wanted to, for the next meeting, which I think will be July 11th, that meeting, I'm bringing forward a resolution to move the critical home repair program forward. That program went through procurement, is going to be housed at the county finance department, and there was a vendor that received the highest score, CarpDeck. Y'all are familiar with that vendor. They currently do your weatherization program, I believe. And so this resolution that will be on the July 11th agenda will just let us move forward with contract negotiations to begin that program. They've completed almost all of the compliance, and so we think it's time to now move forward to the contracting stage. Today you have some items that I brought forward last informational session, and I'm happy to answer any questions about those. And then today I finally finished this spreadsheet that we've been talking about with a few commissioners that basically gives you a status of where everything is and the resolution number. I know Commissioner Sankey always asks me the resolution number, and sometimes I know and sometimes I don't. So I put it on this spreadsheet. In 2022, the resolutions were not numbered. Y'all just started numbering resolutions in 2023, so you'll see 2022 resolution. That will be, you know, you can reference that resolution by the date. But then there, in 2023, a numbering system got started, and so you'll see actual numbers for the resolutions in 2023. But that's the current status of, you know, kind of everything. And I've looked over it a bunch of times. I might have made a mistake, but if I have, I'll give you a new copy. You'll see.
Susan, before you move off from this document, I'm glancing at it now, and you might not have been finished talking about it.
No.
And I interrupted.
That's
Is there
okay.
going to be some, I see all the different items. Is there going to be totals? You know,
Yes, I can get you
an
total.
obligation total, a pending
Yes.
total.
And I've actually got a spreadsheet with
An
obligation
allocated total.
totals. So I'll email
An
that
allocated
around.
total, an obligation total.
And
I mean, there's
expended.
expended.
I can
okay.
give you that. We've got a spreadsheet that does that, so I'll email that around.
Thank you.
And then at the very back, you'll see kind of a brightly colored yellow, some boxes, the next to last page and the last page. You'll see these pending resolutions. Some of them are today. And then the one I talked about for critical home repair. So those are the ones that y'all have pending right now. And then we'll bring forward more on the July 11th informational session, and what we plan to bring then are the Baptist Hospital, Jackson Hospital allocations to move forward to their beneficiary agreements, the United Way, if they're finished with compliance, and then the domestic violence consortium in that July 11th informational meeting. So you'll be able to ask any questions there about compliance or uses of those funds.
Terry, in the news this week, it was federal funds for $22 million to Birmingham. You know anything about that, or?
We do. So we actually, Levitate actually assists the city of Birmingham with their grants. And so that grant was a RAISE grant. And so every city picks a project to submit for their RAISE grant, and it's a pretty large grant. And so they put in some ARPA funds for trails, and then they also put in some additional city funds for trails, and then their grant application that made it competitive, and they received the RAISE grant, which is going to end up being $21 million to.
And that's the old Tiger Build grants.
Yes, and so it's a combination, right, of several different funding sources, but it's a total of $21 million. And those trails will be built entirely within the Smithfield community, which is disproportionately affected or disadvantaged census tract, all the way through the Civil Rights District. It will connect the Graymont community, which most of us know as the Legion Field area, all the way to downtown.
You know, Kendall's very familiar with this because Kendall was doing it for the city, but we've tried for raise, build, Tiger grants, we've applied in the past, but it was always for major roads, highways, interstates. I wasn't even aware that was even an option.
Yeah, and I think that's where you'll see on alternative transportation, that has been, trails have been included in alternative transportation in a federal definition, and so that's why some of these Department of Transportation grants and economic development grants can be used to pay for trails, is because they are now considered alternative transportation in addition to health benefits and connecting communities and those kinds of things.
Well, Susan, that trails, of course, is nothing new in terms
Nothing
of.
new.
Yeah. And so even before ARPA funding was available, there are a number of cities across the United States that actually have developed trails with money from the Federal Department of Transportation, whether they call it RAISE or whatever, grant might have been available. So and I think you said that the ARPA funding helped this project in Birmingham. So I'm wondering, before ARPA funding, what was the criteria that the DOT used to decide whether or not a project was worthy of their consideration?
Well, I think one of the things that's important, and I wish Terry was here because she's a lot more familiar with this than me, but one of the criteria is what skin does the actual city have in the game? And certainly wealthier cities were able to put a lot of funds into competitive funding for those RAISE grants. And so I think what's different now is that some of the areas that are well, two things. One, ARPA funds require that you put them in disadvantaged communities, right? So trails were being built, but they may not have been built in the areas that, could have used them also. And then the second thing is, what skin does the city or our philanthropy or other, funds, what difference does that make in terms of making the application more competitive? And so cities like Chattanooga, Nashville, that have huge budgets and are, what I would consider to be, more wealthier cities or more developed cities, they were able to put some of their budget funds in to make their applications competitive. What ARPA does is give cities that have tighter budgets and more demands on their resources an ability to put that funding in to make their applications more competitive.
So would you say that trails fall more under the category of economic development or
Well,
health
they're
and
both.
wellness?
They certainly produce that. There's a lot of evidence that trails do produce economic development, but really the reason that they're in the rescue plan funds is for health reasons and connecting communities to areas they may not have been able to connect to before. A third of the people in Montgomery don't have access to a car. So, bicycles and trails are alternative transportation for those folks, just like public transportation would. So yes, economic development follows trails. That's been demonstrated over and over, but there are several purposes for trails that were included in the Treasury regulations, which really, I'm not up here to advocate for anything. I'm up here to explain why certain things are included in the Treasury regulations. The reason they included trails is because it reconnected communities over spaces that they didn't have access to. Like one of the trails in Birmingham will connect a community of 30,000 people to the health department. You can actually walk down the trail to the health department. So that's part of it. The other part is getting people out to walk, you know, to prevent high blood pressure and cardiac disease and all those kinds of things. And then connecting communities with each other. Development of the trail with lights, you know, reduces crime. It's been shown to do that as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of evidence-based reasons for trails and why they included them in the Treasury regulation permissible expenditures.
Okay, thank you. I would have one more question about
Sure.
something else. Will you finish with your?
Oh, I think I'm done. Y'all can ask me questions when you get a chance to review it, and I'll make sure, if I've made any mistakes, y'all let me know.
I was just curious, Mr. Chairman. The YMCA, you know, we total 7.5 million thus far. I don't know what else we might be thinking about having them do. But so why are we putting them in as beneficiaries as opposed to subrecipients? You know, with subrecipients, you can kind of monitor procurement processes and other things and have more accountability. So why beneficiary versus subrecipient?
So subrecipients are people who are conducting programs for the county or for the city. So they're standing in the shoes. So the definition of a subrecipient is a person or a company that stands in the shoes of the county in doing work. So for instance, the critical home repair, that carp deck is going to stand in the shoes of the county and do this program, right? They're not a nonprofit that's going to be out there helping the community just like they were before. This is a company that's going to come and conduct a program for the county. It's interesting you talk about the monitoring. We've actually included in the contract of the YMCA the same monitoring requirements that subrecipients have. So we didn't have to do that, but we included monitoring for the YMCA just like subrecipients are monitored. So they must submit, they must bid out their, anything over $50,000, they have to bid it out just like the Public Works law. And they have to report to us every quarter everything and submit all their invoices. So we, because it was a large amount that y'all voted on to give to the YMCA, we thought it was best to put them in a category. Although they're a beneficiary, they still have the same requirements as a subrecipient.
And that's enforceable. You all,
Oh, it's in the contract. If they don't do it, they don't get the money. We can get the money back from them if they don't comply with the monitoring requirements, and that's
you-
in the contract.
Levitate will be monitoring procurement.
Well,
procurement.
right, everybody monitors procurement, but we do that right now, yes.
I'm just curious about that because it seems like with $7.5 million, you know, we ought to have some control from this level. The county commission should have some control.
Well, you absolutely do through your staff in that contract. I mean, you can, the contract is between you and the YMCA, the county commission and the YMCA and the city and the YMCA. So you absolutely have control over that. And it's 6.1 plus the million for Kershaw. And Kershaw's, if you vote on that today, that'll be 7.1. But if, and that contract is just an amendment to the existing contract, adding Kershaw YMCA, so it will have the same requirements. And I've got affidavits, if you want to see them, about their qualifications as a negatively impacted beneficiary. So they've testified under oath to their losses and to their damage.
And they provided financial statements as well.
They did.
Okay, thank you.
And we can get those to anybody who wants to see them.
Any other questions for Terry?
Susan?
Susan.
We're all the same over here. All right, thank you,
I mean,
guys.
next agenda.
Next, we'll hear from Kendall Anderson regarding a bid award, item number 6.
Good morning. For our Phase 2 renovations of our Montgomery County Detention Facility, we received 3 bids, and the low bidder was at a cost of $13,863,000. The initial budget was $15 million, so luckily this one came in under budget. These renovations will include plumbing, new water and sewer lines, some floor work, and some slight cell improvements. We are recommending that the commission award the bid to Holley-Henley Bidders Incorporated and a construction contract in the amount of $13,863,000 be placed on the next agenda.
Yeah, all three are very close.
Yes.
They all came in very, very close. And I think Holley-Henley actually came out, I think Florence, you said yesterday, they came out 14 different times and looked at it, so I think they really wanted to do this project. They've done other projects for us in the past, too. Is there any other questions on this one?
What are they doing this time?
In the jail,
New plumbing, water and sewer lines.
This is
In
in the
this-
old jail?
Yes, sir, in the old part of the jail.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for
I know.
a number of years.
It's just a, you know, I know we have it, and we have to maintain it because we have it, but we're nowhere near capacity ever up there. We have all this space up there that we'll never use, and we have to maintain it because it's connected to the stuff that we are really using. I mean, that's the problem I have. The problem I have
Yeah.
with the vital plumbing is in a portion of the building that we probably won't be, don't really need to use, but we have to maintain it because it provides sewage, or water, or it supplies the part of the building that we are using, I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Kevin, do you know what the population in our jail is?
Today, 752,
752.
going up,
And our capacity is what?
1150.
And I know we've talked about this in the past a number of times, trying to see how we can get it fuller, because the state comes back and they're always saying they're overcrowded, but they don't want to pay. Is that what the problem is?
Commissioner, when you build a jail, you build it for not your present needs, but
For the-
30, 40 years out, and that was the whole mindset in constructing J2.
Yeah.
You know, 30 years from now, it'll be at full capacity, and then I guess another set of people will have to worry about that, but you always build for the future, and so the timeline is really on track for the future. You know, we did, obviously, as Mr. Harris pointed out, had a lot of vacancy when it was first constructed, but that gap is starting to close.
Yeah. That's because it has gone up. I mean, substantially. Unfortunately, it's gone up. Yeah. So, okay. Thanks, Chief.
Chief, excuse me.
I certainly hope we never.
Is that going up because we are taking inmates from other counties? Are you factoring that into your position today, that we're taking inmates from other counties?
To answer your question, Commissioner, yes, but that's not a significant, the Dallas County inmates. It's a portion of that, but our population has grown in Montgomery counties.
And we anticipate, as we continue to grow, in general population, we're gonna have more arrests and more people confined.
I certainly hope not.
I hope not.
but that's reality.
We just got too much capacity, and we gotta maintain it. That's my whole problem. When we have too much capacity, it'll be a long time, if ever, we fill that jail up. But we have to fix this part of it, because it supports the new part of the jail that we are fixing. And when they built that thing or redid it, they should have made it independent, made it so one could operate without the other. I mean, but, you know, we'll do what we have to do. That's just always been my rub on it. When I found out we had to do that work on that side of the street, and it was essential if we were gonna run the rest of the jail, I just had a problem with that, but there's no way to get out of it.
No.
But I doubt if we'll ever, you know, I thought we were a little bit more than, our capacity was a little bit more than 1,100, 1,400, I thought. I thought that was our capacity, but 1,297? Yeah, and we're at 600 or 700,
752.
750.
18 months ago, we were at less than 500, we were 450 at one time.
Yeah.
So, but once the court started kind of going back into trials and convictions,
Well, I mean, we have adequate population, and we can jail people for all these counties around us if it came down to it. We have enough space to do it. We just need the people. But anyway, we got to do what we got to do. We have to get this done. I understand that. So I'm not objecting to
the floor's
having it
up
done.
to you.
I'm just pointing out that issue, you know.
So that'll be next agenda.
Now we'll hear from Parks and Recreation Director James Williams.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Warren.
Come before you today asking for your support financially on helping out on this event, and this will be the first ever on county grounds or county-sponsored, the Reggie Barlow co-ed flag football camp. Coach Barlow, who's here today, reached out to me a couple of weeks ago in reference to wanting to give back to the community. And his concept was that he would like to reach out to our county youth and give them the opportunity to participate in a camp, to engage with professional athletes where youth who may not have had the opportunity or just the transportation to come in the city, where they can engage with coaches and professional athletes at this camp. The camp would consist of camp T-shirts, camp swag bags. We're going to provide lunch from Chick-fil-A. I've talked with the Chick-fil-A on Ann Street, and they said they would make an exception and deliver the lunches. Hydration station, and again, this will be held at the Montgomery County Activity Center football field complex, which is located down in Grady, Alabama. We're strongly urging for our youth, we're going to do pre-registration. We're going to focus on our summer campers in the Hope Hull community, Madison Park, Flatwood, along with Grady and Raymer.
So you're gonna transport them,
Yeah.
transportation?
We're going to provide pickup sites for transportation to pick them up, but as well as Commissioner Harris' site. We have campers this summer from the Von Meadows, Regency Park area. If you drive by Troy Highway and intersection of Taylor Road around 7:30, we pick up roughly 25, 30 kids that are actually going out into the county participating at one of our sites for our summer program.
That's because they don't have anything in their neighborhood. But anyway, go ahead.
But Commissioner, we're going to provide a pickup site as well for those youth. But Coach Barlow,
How many kids are you expecting to affect?
The maximum we want is 100 kids. We're going to look for maybe an overflow of 20 to 25, but that's why we're going to strongly push the pre-registration, where we can get an accurate number count, how many males, females, because it will be co-ed, and this will be a flag football.
Jay, you got a budget for this?
Yeah.
Have you got a written budget?
Yes, we do.
Get that to me or get to the commission?
All right.
Yeah.
And what we,
Breakdown of expenses and all that, I want to see all that,
right.
yeah.
What I'm asking for today, or Coach Barlow just would like to help out offset some of the costs, $5,000, which will cover the T-shirts, the swag bags, the lunch, and the hydration station. So I'm asking if the commissioners would sponsor this event.
What's the total cost of the event? You're asking us for 5,000, what's the cost?
The total cost, I've got that information. I mean, Coach Barlow, if you want to speak, he's got.
Come on up here, Coach.
Coach
Coach is my back door, lives right behind me there, and he used to invite me to go fishing sometime, but
I mean,
Coach,
the list has got equipment, he's got a house, the athletes who are coming in, so I mean, we can get you a total cost, but he only asked for, well, I'm only asking for 5,000.
Good
and Reggie, before you start, Reggie was a star at Alabama State, Dan Harris's alma mater. And then in NFL, and now you're coaching at the XFL.
Right.
Well, you didn't mention where he was before Alabama State.
Oh, I didn't mention that, did I?
NFL.
Where did you play high school ball?
Lanier, he's sitting in Lanier High School.
about Robert E. Lee.
Played high school ball at Lanier, he played in the pros,
You Lee, I was just high school.
Right,
played in the pros at Oakland and played at Tampa.
Jacksonville.
And he's got, in Jacksonville, and he's got a big ring to prove that he played up there.
That's right.
Now he said, yeah, we need this 5,000.
Well, I mean, we'll take more, and not to take you guys' time, I really appreciate you guys allowing me to come up here and speak. Obviously, the two most important days in our life is the day that we're born and then the day that we realize why. And my why is to serve God's people in whatever capacity I can. And I think, you know, as a guy that kind of had dealings with Hope Hull, Alabama, where my granny lived, and not really having a lot in that area, people in Montgomery get an opportunity to come to these camps all the time, the kids in Montgomery, city of Montgomery. But obviously, the areas that James mentioned, right, these kids don't get that. So dealing with my really good friend, Coach Payne, and we were just talking about how can we do something in that area, in that community. And it's like, well, let's do a co-ed flag football, right? Get the young girls involved, obviously the boys involved. And, you know, a lot goes into putting the camp on. It's not just showing up and throwing the football around. You know, it's not just that. It's, you know, obviously there's an organizer. Her name is April Taylor. Obviously you have to compensate that lady, right, for organizing all this stuff and putting it together. And then, of course, there's a professional female football player that we want to be a part of this as well. Obviously, her travel and accommodations would have to be taken care of. And then, as Mr. James mentioned, the swag bag is just an opportunity for them to have a T-shirt, for them to have a water bottle. I wrote kids' books, so I'd like to have a boys' affirmation book in the bag and a girls' affirmation book in the bag as well. So, so those type of things that comes with it. And for the first one, we're only saying 100 because, you know, we don't want to be overwhelmed with the first one, but we do have capacity for overflow of, you know, 25 or so extra kids. So,
Coach, we want your full budget. What it's going to cost to do this if you were to get 100 kids? We want that budget.
Yeah, I mean, we have it written out. Mr. James can get it to you guys. The number off, roughly, like Ms. Taylor, the lady that is the organizer of the camp, it came in around 10,000 or so. But, you know, obviously, as we sat down and talked, you know, obviously we said, well, we got to make some adjustments if we don't get the funding. And obviously, I'm investing some, you know, my finances as well.
I think right? your investment is your willingness to come
right.
and to do this and to give back.
Yeah, I appreciate
and,
that.
And we are, as a commission, we're appreciative of that, and we want to show that.
Okay.
You don't necessarily have to come here and provide the services and then pay for them too.
Right.
That's not good hospitality.
Well, I appreciate you.
And you're coming home too. This is home. We
Yeah.
got to treat it that way. So
August 5th is when we're having.
just give us that number, and we'll figure out a way to come up with paying for it.
Okay, we appreciate that. You know, that was a word in the movie, Show Me the Money.
There you
All
go.
right, so you say.
There you go.
All right, so thank y'all for y'all
Hey,
time. I really
Coach,
appreciate
before you
it.
leave, are you operating your own 501c3?
Actually, Ms. Taylor is. Yeah, but I might need to speak with you about something like that, because there's a lot of things that I want to do here in the city that we're doing in DC that obviously I would need to have something like that in place to be able to do.
At 9 to 12, is that enough time? By the time you get there, get everybody organized, be time to go.
Well, it's going to be too hot to go past 12.
They're
Right.
gonna be ready to go by 12. I
So-
promise you.
So this is, this money will go through Parks and Rec, right? Correct. Okay. Get us the number. Coach, we don't want you to come down here and put on the show and then pay for it too.
Yeah, I agree. I
That's-
definitely agree on that one.
That's not the way we do things in Montgomery County.
I appreciate it. Hey, I had to call the police on somebody sneaking on my property at least 3 times. And come to find out it was the commissioner.
Let me wait a minute now. Reggie lives right behind me. And,
Right,
and
right behind
they
him,
have
right?
a lake back there. I got to tell everybody the whole story now. Reggie they have a lake, and they've got some old curmudgeon
Yeah.
that is like the watchdog.
Yes.
And one time, and put a sign on the back of my lot, 'cause my lot backs up basically
To the
Reggie's,
lake, right, to
at the
my,
lake.
right.
Even though I'm not in that HOA area. And he put a sign says, stay out of this yard, there's no trespassing, this means you, and pointed towards my house. And this guy's, he's
Since
got,
the bill's about 100 years old.
oh, at least, and, so I took the sign over there to his house, I said, excuse me, I said, Mr. So-and-so, I said, you put this on my lot? Yeah, you've been fishing in my lake. And I said, sir, I have not been fishing in your lake. Yeah, you have. And he said, I've sitting here and watched you. I said, mister, I promise you. He said, well, it must have been your son. I said, well, I don't have a son. And well, to kind of find out, he said, well, somebody's walking through your yard coming fishing. I said, well, wait a minute, I got 4 or 5 labs back there, and they eat him alive. Yeah, so they ain't. Anyways, my next door neighbor was going back there fishing, but he blamed me on it. So if I want to go fishing, I got to call Reggie and say, hey, please get Mr. Offer my, give me the pass to get in there and fish. But so that's the whole story. I wasn't trespassing.
Thank y'all so much.
Thanks, Reggie.
I'll get that, Commissioner's entire budget. Appreciate your support.
Next item is the appointment of Jason Broadway as a board member of the Pine Level Water Authority for a term expiring March 1st, 2026.
Yeah, I still got a bunch of them. That's next agenda.
Consider a budget change request for the Montgomery Humane Society.
Are we 50-50 with, on that? How
We're,
I saw
We're
that. That's a
60-40,
huge,
right? on the Humane
How much are
Society.
we spending on that?
Cheryl can,
That's a big jump from what I,
Well, I
Can recall.
think what's happened, they added some new expenses because of some new city laws.
Ordinances.
We increased the budget last year. We hadn't increased it since 1999. I don't know how they've, operated without any increases.
we've been giving them money since I've been on the commission.
Well, we gave them 500,000, that's what we were giving them in 1999 and before. We increased the budget this last year to 800,000. And the city increased their budget. Well, they ended up with a shortfall of about 400,000. We met with, Betty and I met with Doug and Charles Genwright to discuss it because they basically don't have quite the funding. They said if they don't, by statute, the county has to operate the facility or do it. It was almost like we can't continue to operate. So the 400,000 we have split with the city. They're paying 200,000, we're paying 200,000. And then Pike Road is picking up some. So we'll basically have $1 million appropriation to them.
How many?
$1 million will be the total appropriation,
That's the total appropriation?
yes.
We need to take a look at that legislation and see, because there's some problems with it. Most of the animals out there come from the city of Montgomery, and I don't think the statute even addressed them as having any responsibility.
It
toward-
doesn't really, it says it's the county's responsibility is
Yeah.
what it says.
Yeah.
And the city will now, they'll be at a little over 1.2 million in funding. So their funding is more than ours.
Yeah, and they have lease laws. We don't
Yes.
have lease laws in the county, and I don't think Pike Road even has any lease laws in Pike Road.
What's the bulk of their expense, Cheryl, the Humane Society? Is it salaries or what is it, veterinarian services?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of salaries in there. You have that. I mean, I think
But
they.
they're not really, Cheryl. I mean, they're pretty
Well,
thin
they're
on-
lean on that as far as it
Yeah.
goes, but that, with any kind of organization, you've got personnel expenses. And I think the other is I think one of the items that's really, I can't explain it totally, is how they get dogs and they have to hold them as evidence. Law enforcement might be able to speak to that better, but they have to hold them in quarantine for, I think one of the examples was a year. you know, just certain things they have to do.
But they
and-
also have to provide veterinary
Yeah,
care for
you
them.
have that care,
And they have to take animal.
food,
If you drop
all-
a dog off, a cat, they have to take it. They don't, it's not,
No, right,
They
and,
have no
uh,
option, and they can't turn it away.
just overall increases in expenses. I mean, as far as increases, I doubt the salaries have gone up that much. I can look at that. They
Well,
haven't
I'm
gone up
just-
very much, but
And they have
just
a lot of
operating.
volunteers. I mean, it's
They have a lot of volunteers
volunteer
and-
run.
I just can't help but think we dealt with this since 1999. I came on in 2012, and there were a couple of periods of crisis with the shelter, and the people came to talk to us on a couple of occasions that we had to come up with some more money for them.
We came up with one thing about 2 years ago. It was a capital expense. Was it? It was
We
for
did,
vehicle or something they had to have, or something to,
I'd have to think it was around 50,000 is
That was
is what
one
I'm
of them, yeah.
thinking.
Yeah.
And then there was
Back,
another situation.
We
with-
used to give them an annual amount towards when they built the new building. I think we had committed 75,000 for 5 years, and then that went away. And then really in 8, when we cut the budget back in 9, 10, we actually cut them for a couple of years, and then we brought them back to 500,000. But they've been at an appropriation of 500,000 a year from us since before 1999. And so last year was the first year we increased them.
any other questions? That'll be on the next agenda.
Item number 8 is a budget change request number 3 for the county commission, which will increase the travel budget.
Be next agenda.
I believe that's all of our items.
We did do the appointment to the water board. You went by that one, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. Have we got anybody on the list that wants to speak at 10 o'clock that willing to speak now? No names, okay. Anything else from the commission that we want to discuss? I will give one update on Whitewater that I was going to give at the 10 o'clock meeting, but the grand opening will be July the 8th. That's between this meeting and our next county commission meeting. And one part of the grand opening, there's a whole list of activities from July the 7th with the ribbon cutting through the weekend. There's bands, concerts, there's going to be competitions, a lot of exciting things there. But there's one thing I do want to point out for the community and for the businesses in Montgomery. There's an opportunity to be involved in the corporate raft race. It's on Saturday from 9 to 12. It's a timed event, so it's just a contest where your company, church, organization, fraternity, whatever it is, wants to participate. It's $1,000. There's 4 to 6 people in a raft. They'll give you training. They'll give you all the equipment. They'll give you some practice time. But basically, you go to the top of the adventure channel, and you time. The fastest one down wins. I guess you have to be remain in the raft to finish at the end, but the fastest one down wins. It's going to be a really fun event, and so I'm encouraging again, the business, churches, fraternities, groups, whoever it is out there, if you're interested, go to the Whitewater site and register your team and get them signed up. So it's going to be a really, really fun event. We've got a lot of teams signed up, but we got room for plenty more on that day. So it's going to be an exciting time at the first weekend there in July.
Do you need your own raft to participate?
No, they got the rafts and all that, and so it'll be a fun time. So, how many people in the room has been to the Whitewater Park and seen it? Just raise your hand if you've been there. You know, you can go out there and see it. It's open. I hate to tell you when, but I know it's open on soft schedule most days. At least I know Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But you can walk in. It's no charge to walk in and see it. So I think you'd be pretty amazed when you see it. Pretty astonished that this is in Montgomery, Alabama. Anything else from the commission? Well, we'll take a 7 or 8 minute recess, and we can start at 10 o'clock on time today, so.